nice meeting. All right, everybody can still see my screen. I'm bringing up the first pack slides. Willie, on the agenda, you invited me over to talk a little bit about promoting paddlecraft safety, a little bit about vessel safety check, and a bit about the Octopad program that we have. Appreciate the invite. My name's Joey Tagooting. I'm from Flotilla 2506, Occoquan, Fairfax. I'm an Octopad qualifier and an ACA Level 2 touring instructor. The purpose for this discussion is basically to make folks aware of the basic needs and issues and regarding paddling safety, the basic equipment you should have, and to provide some information about paddling that will help to make you a more knowledgeable and safer paddler. As the slide shows, since the early 60s, the green line indicates the number of registered powerboats, vessels. It's been increasing since the 60s. Fortunately, because of public awareness, public education classes, to a great extent of the exercises by the auxiliary, the number of deaths have been decreasing. That's the blue line that's indicated on the slide. However, paddle sports has been rising dramatically. As it shows on the report, by 2014, they had over close to 22 million Americans. So about 7.4% of the population got into paddlecrafts. It's quite an exciting number. It's all fun, but stuff happens. Mistakes are made. Folks get in over their head. So what the Coast Guard Auxiliary is trying to do is attempt to minimize the risk by educating paddlecraft users, such as this slideshow that we're looking at the moment, by educating auxiliaries through the Octopad program, and by providing vessel safety checks for paddlers. Because as you can see from the slide now, since '87, paddle sports deaths have actually been increasing. They've been going up. So as motorboat, powerboat deaths have been decreasing, paddle sport deaths have actually been increasing because of the increase in folks that jump onto paddlecraft. And there's a number of reasons why they're jumping on paddlecraft. It's cheaper, it's easier to store, it's quick, there's no gas, less expensive. So that's causing the rise in popularity, but a lot of folks without the proper education are jumping onto this bandwagon and meeting an unfortunate demise. As you can see by the screen, this slide, that quite recently, in July last year, there was even a Secret Service agent that died in Annapolis after she fell off her kayak. In February of earlier this year, I don't know if you heard the story, but there was a missing kayaker in Florida who was found alive, fortunately, but after he fell off his kayak, he was afloat by his PFD. He was wearing his life jacket, which was great news. And as you can see on the slide, a couple other unfortunate events. Even in Virginia, the 2019 incidents, the highlighted area here, number of fatalities in Virginia, there are 20 of them. 2 of them were from kayaks, or paddlecraft. The other highlighted portion of here is about life jackets and wearing of life jackets. In 95% of fatal incidents, no life jacket was worn. As I mentioned earlier, it's relatively inexpensive and quite easy for folks to pick up a paddlecraft, a kayak, a canoe. Most stores, you walk into a Walmart, you walk into a Tractor Supply, you walk into Costco. You can walk out with a boat, and hopefully you walk out with a life jacket as well. You can even order them online. And most of these boats are sold without any instruction, any guidance. And this is one of the reasons why program visitation is very important, because going at each of these establishments and providing them with literature, providing them with pamphlets, providing them with our contact information, so that if folks want to get in touch with us and have some questions, we can provide those answers for them. Some of the basic paddlecraft equipment. You got the kayak, single touring, you got those for fishing, you got tandems, stand-up paddling, big, really big nowadays. Along with kayak, you got a paddle that goes with it. And after buying your kayak, after getting your paddle, your life jacket, one of the recommendations we suggest is getting some flotation bags to assist in making sure that your paddle or your kayak stays afloat. We'll talk a little bit more about flotation bags as we move forward. Life jackets, picking the right life jacket, making sure it fits, making sure it's got the locations tags so that you can attach a whistle, a mirror. Jacket doesn't have to be worn, should be worn. It may be inflatable. One of the things we talk about on a kayak is that you're actually in between swims. So if you have an automatic life jacket, it will probably get inflated, and I don't know how you would deflate it once you fall into the water. And folks, if I haven't said it before, if there's questions, feel free to ask. Other equipment that goes along with kayaking, you've got your paddle leash, you've got your spray skirt, you have your throw bag, your tow line. There's quite a litany of equipment that one puts on his or her person or stores within the hatches inside this kayak. So there's several pieces of items that are recommended. There's not a lot that's actually required, but recommended. We'll go through some of those as we move forward. Boater education is a big thing that kayakers should understand, and paddlecraft should understand. Stand-up paddlers themselves. Boater education is not required for paddlecraft, but when I do paddling ashore program or bump into kayakers, I highly recommend that they take a boater education course, because knowledge is power, and the more you can find out what the other person is doing, that makes it a safer and more pleasant experience. A lot of boats don't require your boat to be, a lot of states don't require your boat to be registered, so check in with your local state to find out those requirements. A lot of kayakers don't recognize or understand what trip planning is. Trip planning is making sure that you've got a route planned out, a destination. You've got here's the all-important float plan that should be filed. Trip planning involves knowing about weather conditions, water conditions, what are some access points and some egress points in case of an emergency that comes up. So we talk to folks out in the public a lot about trip planning and what are contingencies. We talk to folks and kayakers about how and what is the best way to get their vessel to the water. I have a pickup truck, so it's easy for me to dump it in the back of the truck and off I go. For those that have a smaller vessel, it's making sure that it's secured at 4 points. You got the front, you got the middle sections, you got the rear. You make sure that it can't blow off, going sideways, you got the wind coming at you. So there are a lot of good kayak racks that folks should look into and make sure that it's secure on their vehicle. At the water's edge is another all-important place to be aware of your equipment. Check it once before you leave home. Check it again once you get to the shoreline. And as it says on the slide, a checklist is great to have instead of using your memory. And one of the things we tell folks is that a checklist such as the vessel safety check is a great list to go by. At the water's edge is a great time also to talk about group communications. There are paddle signals, and if folks understand that there are certain paddle signals, you can give an indication to the rest of your group without even shouting or calling them on the radio if they have it. Once you get to the water, first and foremost, make sure that you put your life jacket on. Make sure that when you move on your vessel or board your vessel, try to have 3 points of contact. These two right here are showing the same method for how to get into your kayak and how to get out of your kayak. If you notice, the boat is parallel to shore. They're using the paddle to angle it so that it can't drift away. This one is sitting on the back of the cockpit so that they can get their footing. They put both feet on the opposite sides of the kayak. This individual here maybe stretching or maybe signaling to the rest of her group, because this is actually a signal, a communication to tell folks to stop. Bunch of looks like water paddlers having a bunch of fun down on this one, this slide. Awareness, situational awareness is something that we talk to the public about. Being aware of power boats. What are the rules of the road? This gentleman's trying to get an estimate of what's going on with this boater, what direction he's going into, and what action he should take if the need arises. These group of individuals, I'm not sure if they're going upriver, downriver, or crossing the river, because if they're crossing the river, there's a safer way of doing it rather than the method that they're showing here. Visibility. You're already on a kayak or canoe. You're already low to the water, so you want to be seen, basically. When you're kayaking, the first thing that folks notice is the glint off your kayak, off your paddle. They see a sun reflection, the light reflecting off your paddle. Then they notice that there's something moving or a motion. Then the third thing they probably notice is the kayaker, him or herself. The auxiliary provides decals that go on the paddle so that it reflects the sun and makes it easier to see the glint. If you don't have these decals provided by the auxiliary, you can actually use reflective tape, what I've done on these paddles, yellow, white, whatever color you got. For clothing, the auxiliary actually has an approved uniform. It's this bright orange. It's got the logo on both sleeves, long sleeve here, and I actually, on occasion, wear this bright orange hat, which it makes it me even more seen on the water. Folks have to understand the speed of boats and the distance that they can cover quite quickly. On a power boat going in a quarter mile, on a power boat going about 60 miles an hour, you've got a closing distance of about 15 seconds. That's pretty fast, so you should be aware, or at least aware of some possibilities, action to take, and it may not allow a lot of reaction time, both by yourself and the boater. Just be aware of that. Emergencies do happen. They do come up, they do arise. Some emergencies are caused by the weather, so it helps to be aware of what the conditions are with the weather, what's the wind like, what's the water temperature, what the clouds are doing or showing or indicating. As we always say, alcohol and boating, drugs, they don't mix. Don't do it. Just don't. No alcohol, no drugs. But accidents and illness does happen. Someone gets seasick. Someone gets hypothermia. They're fatigued. Any of these things. And what we advocate is practicing self and team rescues. This individual in the kayaker is assisting the wet one that's in the water here. Actually, it looks like they're trying to do a team rescue, or something called a scoop rescue, where they actually submerge the kayak and the wet one actually slides in, and the rescuer leverages the boat, pushing the boat down and pulling on the wet one in order to right the individual up. So that's a rescue technique that you practice, and it's a very good technique, very speedy recovery. Stand-up paddling. Stand-up paddling is a vessel, is a legal vessel, and with that in mind, there's a requirement to have a life jacket on board. Don't have to wear it, just have it on board, except in a surf zone. Of all things, you do not need a life jacket in a surf zone. A couple of observations about these stand-up paddlers. This one is not wearing a life jacket, as we mentioned. It actually looks like he's rather large for this board as well. As you can see, the board's practically submerged in the water. Another thing is we advocate wearing good footwear, because accidents can happen and you stub your toe, scraping on some oysters, barnacles, whatever. This paddler is a good picture. She's wearing some appropriate footwear, has the inflatable life jacket, and actually has a leash that attaches the paddlecraft to her leg. There are times to wear this leash. It's up to the individual to decide if it's appropriate time, because if she does fall off, the danger of entanglement could happen. The other thing about the life jacket, we point out to people, is that she's got it in the appropriate position. Out in front on her waist, you will often see stand-up paddlers with the inflatable life jacket on their posterior, right above their rump. Well, if you fall in the water and that life jacket gets inflated, it's kind of hard to reach behind you and get it in the right position, because that thing's going to float and you aren't. So we actually provide some tips to folks for stand-up paddling. Of course, wearing the jacket, carrying a whistle, and knowing how to self-rescue. So we just provide them with a list of things that they should be aware of, know how to do, practice on a daily basis. Kayak fishing. Excuse me 1 minute. Kayak fishing. Kayak fishing is how I got into kayaking, actually. One of the things you have to be aware of as a kayak fisherman, there's a lot of equipment on this boat. It's out in the open, a lot of things to get tangled by the fishing line. What happens if you do fall off and all this equipment is all over the place? You got hooks, you got lines, and what's the route or the exercise to get back onto the boat? So all those things you got to be aware of and be mindful of how to get back on your vessel. And it could be a little different than what's called a enclosed kayak, another type of kayak. Of course, here we offer safety tips for fishermen as well. I tend to disagree with number one and number two. I think number one should always be wear your life jacket. This little thing right here, the If Found Contact sticker. We pass those out at public events, at public education, when we do vessel safety checks. It's a great introduction because you can go up to the paddler and ask them if they have one of these stickers, one of these labels, and we tell them why they should have one of these stickers, because if it's on their dock, if the kayak's on their dock and a heavy rain blows it off their dock, one, there's a good chance with this information that they'll be able to recover the property, but two, we won't send the Coast Guard looking to see if there's anybody that fell out of their vessel. We definitely tell folks to use a waterproof marker. We actually advocate using a paint pen. They seem to fade less than a Sharpie. All right, the previous slides gave a very rudimentary level of information about paddlecraft safety to the general public. But the auxiliary, where do you go if you want to further your education about paddlecraft? And this is the marketing plug that the upcoming Oxpads, I know they're currently on hold, but May and in June. May, it'll be down in Galesville. June, we're looking to hold it down in Collington Harbor. Please hold on 1 minute while I make an adjustment. I'm going to a different slide deck. All right, not a bad transition. Now, this slide deck was given at the D-Train, as you can see on the slide, in Baltimore last September. Roland McDevitt, I believe he's in on this call. He is the paddlecraft coordinator for D5 South. He is a level 3 kayak instructor. We, being Warren Darrell and myself, had the opportunity to further our education and train with Roland in August last year, and we had a weekend and we refined our skills and talked about paddlecraft safety, talked about the Oxpad and how to improve how we can help educate the public as well as the paddling community within the auxiliary. Oxpad itself, of course, number one, we talk about the use of life jackets. We talk about the safety equipment and trying to educate the public about equipment compliance, having the whistle, having visual distress signals. We talk about the different outreach programs that are in the OXPAD program. The Ashore outreach, which is especially useful for vessel safety checks. We talk about how we do that, what are some tips to doing it, and educating the public. We talk about our Afloat program, which is being exemplars of kayaking safety when we're actually out on the water. So we educate auxiliaries on the proper techniques, on proper use of their vessels, and we show the public about how to lead by example. It actually brings me to a magazine article, Kayak Fishing. They are doing the same thing. They, in their March magazine, they talked about we as industry servants have to show that we need to show that folks that they must always wear their life jackets. So they've just recently started a program with all their pictures, all their literature. They will not show an individual without their life jacket. So that's something that Kayak Fishing is doing at this present time. The agenda for the OXPAD program: we talk about paddlecraft safety, we talk about the equipment that we use, the boat, the paddles, different life jackets, the tow line. We talk about the planning that we, such as navigation skills, the weather, how do you drop into the water, how do you pull out of the water, how do you safely cross the channel. We talk about the skill sets being ACA level 1 skill sets, ACA level 2 skill sets, how to paddle forward, how to paddle backwards, how to go sideways in your kayak. That's a beautiful thing. If you've never seen anyone go sideways in their kayaks, ask for a demonstration, and they can be done with little effort. We talk about knowing folks' capabilities. Like I said, Roland is currently level 3 ACA level instructor. Warren, Darrell, and myself are level 2. There's a couple other steps that skill sets you need to display in order to step up to level 3. We talk about situational awareness. We actually have some great slides that Roland has shared with us about situational awareness, but it's basically keeping your head on a swivel. What's happening on the water, what's happening with the weather, what's happening with around you, what's with the water conditions, all those sort of things. The OXPAD Ashore is where, there again, we talk about vessel safety checks. We talk about attending public affairs, public events. We talk about going to marinas or Dick's Sporting Goods, or just places where we can talk about kayaks and educate folks on what they should have on their vessel, what classes they need, what skill sets they should be aware of. In the OXPAD Afloat program, we learn the skills set that we were talking about earlier in terms of ACA, American Canoe Association level skills. We talk about the different experiences that we have, and what I mean by that is there are different ways to self-rescue, and someone may be quite experienced with one technique and will give tips to someone else on that technique. We enjoy the camaraderie. We take, on the second day, we take a 5-mile paddle, and we break it up by having lunch either on the beach, or we pull into an on-the-water restaurant, which is a great lot of fun. Okay. We talk about vessel safety checks. We've covered a lot of this material already about the sound signal, the life jacket. We talk about checking the conditions of the vessel themselves, the hull, the hatch covers, and we'll talk a little bit about these in each of the following slides. We talk about bulkheads and flotation. We talk about float plans and high visibility clothing. We talk about self-rescue systems. Some of these open water recommendations, we talk about the pumps and spray skirts. So this is a great forum to educate the public, talk to them, and get them to at least be self-aware of what they should have on their vessel. There again, the legal requirements for a kayak or stand-up paddling are very minimal. You need a life jacket. Unfortunately, it's not required to be worn, but you should wear it. Oops, let me move along. You should have a sound signal, a whistle. A lot of folks, we were doing an ashore program. We had a couple come straight from Costco. They had their kayak, they had their life jacket, they had their paddle. And I said, well, you need a whistle. And they looked at me and I said, you know what to do with that whistle, don't you? And they go, yeah, blow in it. I said, how many times do you blow in it? They didn't understand that 5 is the international signal for distress. So we educated them on not only having a whistle, but the appropriate times to blow it and what you should do if you hear the whistle being blown. We talk about having a white light at night for your navigation. We talk to the public about boater education and how it's not required, but highly advisable to them. Knowing what the other person on the water is supposed to be doing is very helpful for you to plan on what you will be doing. There again, we're going to hammer it in about vessel safety checks, the equipment, the skills that they should have, the knowledge, the planning that they should prepare for, and their situational awareness. We hammer in again about having this sticker and the importance of it in case it gets washed off your dock and you can recover that vessel. If someone has your information, they can call you and say, hey, I got your canoe, where can we meet up to give it back to you? The Oxpad Afloat builds expertise. We had Commodore Thornton visit the Oxpad program last June. That's Mr. Ron Price. I believe he may be on this phone call as well. I think he is my original mentor, getting me started with the Oxpad program, him and Wendy. Oxpad Afloat training. We include ACA level 2 skills, which include going forward, going in reverse, how to stop, how to spin around in a 360 degree, how to go sideways, how to brace so that you don't fall into the water, how to rescue other folks when they do fall into the water. A great group to get familiar with, because you can learn from each other, you can help each other, and it's just not a classroom setting. It's real, it's live, and it's a great place to try different things, different techniques. We talk about planning, we talk about navigating, and how to get where we're going, what possible emergency exits that we should take in case something happens. So we plan on that on shore, we review it, rehearse it. We talk about the proper way to carry and launch your kayak. This is Roland McDevitt. He's in his Romany, and he's already launched out on the water. There's Ron Price helping another auxiliarist get his boat into the water. Now, you wouldn't think so, but there is a proper way to carry and launch. The other gentleman that I showed you on the original screen, Warren Darrell, had a mishap, and he was taking his kayak off of his vehicle. Unfortunately, he fell backwards, and the canoe, the kayak, caught him in the throat. And Roland, if you want, I think he broke his clavicle, and he was out for several months before he could get back to normal, back onto the water. He's recovered by now, but that happened to a professional who knew what he was doing. So you have to be careful. On shore, we practice towing techniques. Ron's going through the exercise, where to hook up the on the lines. We're practicing it, we're reviewing it, we're discussing it, and the advantages and disadvantages. As the slide says, when would you need a tow? If you notice, we talked earlier about what's the proper technique. So we slip it under the person. This orange kayak is Roland, and he's being in a towing simulation. You loop the rig underneath his line, and you hook it with the gate up on Ron's kayak. And when might a tow be needed? When someone's feeling ill, or they've just been rescued, or they're exhausted, or hypothermia. You double up on the rescue, because then the red kayak, the paddler can assist or support or calm and comfort the person in the orange kayak being towed. Situational awareness, marine traffic. This is a great picture. I love it because, oh, look at that. That sailboat is in a heap of hurting, but look at the beautiful bird, and all the while, you aren't even given a second thought about what's coming around on the other end of this boat. Situational awareness would tell you that I got to slow down. Maybe there's somebody else coming around. Maybe I need to take a look. So it's just knowing or thinking about those possibilities. Situational awareness. This is us at the Naval Academy. At the Naval Academy, a lot of boat traffic, a lot of weather or water conditions. We've got a lot of riprap, heavy rock that can get buffeted. A lot of people that are grouping up here. So just being aware of where you're at, where everybody else is, and just keeping your head on a swivel and being aware. Crossing the channel. The idea of crossing a channel is to do it all in abreast, all in one single group, so that you go forward and there's a lot more glint, there's a lot more motion, and it's all timed, not to follow the fastest, but the one who sets the pace. There's one individual that you are required to follow so that you move forward across the river in a short, efficient group. Situational awareness. Roland was kind enough to share this with us. He, as you can see, he's still paddling. He knew that there was a storm coming, but what he did not know was there was a water spout right behind him. That's a real picture. In the skill sets, we talk about how to do the low brace. The low brace is a great technique. If you feel that you are going to fall over, it's a great way to slap the water and push yourself back up so that you're sitting in an upright position. It's a very unusual, to me, a very unusual feeling, but it works. You can feel the water pressure and you can push against it, and it's just enough momentum to get you upright and sitting straight up and right, up and down again. We talk about the self-rescue. Ron is looking over, watching, and giving tips to this young lady who's got the paddle float out, and she's getting ready to straddle this paddle, do a crab, and get back into her vessel under Ron's tutelage, Ron's tips and techniques to take. This is real. This is practice. I mean, real training going on. There's also a way to do this using a Greenland kayak, a Greenland paddle. This is Ron. Now, let's see if this video works. All right. As you can see, Roland is working his legs up with on the paddle. He does a crabbing motion to get back into the cockpit, and he's keeping himself steady. The Greenland paddle is a very skinny kayak, and if you notice, he's still using the paddle out here as an outrigger to float himself, getting balanced, steadies the boat, and what he's going to do is corkscrew himself back into the boat so that he's slowly facing the float that's on the end of his Greenland paddle. He slowly maneuvers. He's still sitting right above the seat, right above the cockpit. Look how skinny and tight that is. And then he narrows himself in, butt on the bottom. He's good to go. There's another technique called the self-rescue, cowboy self-rescue, and it is just like you heard. If you ever seen the old cowboy movies where the hero jumps onto the back of the horse and then shimmies on up into the saddle, that's exactly what you're going to do in a cowboy self-rescue. Warren is walking me through this process, and I'm kicking up there. I'm getting ready to straddle my kayak. I'm keeping my belly button to the kayak, keeping it low, and I'm going to shimmy all the way up to the cockpit and drop myself in. This is Warren. Warren does a cowboy in like 8 seconds. So he rides that rodeo all the way to the end, real quick. Me, I'm still taking half an hour just to try and get onto the back of the vessel. Here we are doing an assisted rescue. What I'm doing right now is I've told Warren to grab the front of my boat, hold on, while I de-water his boat. Once I get it de-watered, I then do nose to toes, toes to nose, and tell Warren to scoot onto the other side so that we can basically shush himself. Is that the right word, Ron? Shush himself back onto his boat and corkscrew himself in to his vessel. After a day long of practicing all these techniques, both of us ended up in the water, and accidents do happen, even to professionals. As you can see, with nobody to assist, Warren was up and doing his cowboy self-rescue in no time flat, while I'm waiting for the Coast Guard to come and rescue me, I'm just holding on to my vessel and still struggling to get on board while he's already accomplished it. Rolling is another self-rescue technique. Rolling basically is, you've seen this. What Roland is doing is he's beginning the roll, he's going through the roll, and now he's doing the final exit to the roll, righting himself right back up into his kayak. All done. No time flat, no assistance. Do it with a smile. We talk about watertight bulkheads and hatch covers. Look at all these different types of kayaks. They have different types of hatches, bulkheads. This kayak right here probably has 3 bulkheads. One here, and one here. What's a bulkhead? Basically, it's a watertight wall between a hatch and the cockpit. That's the bulkhead right there. It helps because the water, when the boat's tipped over, this is the only place that you see right here that water can get in. It does not escape into the hatches. Here's a better picture. This is a Greenland skin over frame kayak, and you can see that there's no bulkhead. That's this one right here. This kayak, you can see that there's a little foam pillar. There's no bulkhead. Bulkheads can be filled in by those flotation bags that I talked about earlier in this presentation. If you put a flotation bag, secure it into this kayak, it becomes a great flotation aid. This flotation bag displaces the water so that the kayak will not sink. It just stops sinking. This right here, this kayak does not have flotation because it has no bulkhead and it has no lifelines. So what Flotilla 2501 did is they installed lifelines and they installed those flotation bags into the front and the back of this boat, making it water ready. These are sit-on-top kayaks. As you can see, they're not enclosed as these sit-inside kayaks. This is a sit-inside, this is a sit-inside, this is a sit-inside, this is a sit-on-top. These sit-insides may or may not have a bulkhead right here. If they don't, put a flotation bag in there to help in keeping the vessel upright or afloat. Roland loves this slide because at D-Train, he pointed out all the equipment. We've got an extra paddle, we got the float paddle bag, we've got some pumps, but he asked the audience, what are the vital instruments or the key pieces or the safety elements that you see on this slide? He paused it a while, took comments from the group, and they talked about the float bag, they talked about having the extra paddles, they talked about the lifeline, and he stopped them and he goes, no, these two have years of experience, have hours of knowledge, hours of experience being on the water. I've been through some weather classes. These two are the main safety elements. So if you can educate yourself and become familiar and practice, rehearse, you're helping yourself. You're a key element to kayaking and paddling sport. I'm going to jump out of this, go right back to the earlier slideshow. We're almost to the end here, folks. We covered a lot of these things in the vessel safety check. If you can, print it out, review it, take a look at it, and let me know if you have any questions. We've talked about carrying handles. We've talked about hatches. We've talked about cockpits. We talked about lifelines, bungee cords. We talked about all the cockpit combing and how that helps. We talked about all this other equipment. We talked about GPS systems, and EPIRBs, and bilge pumps. We talked about resources that are also available. Unfortunately, the ACA has pulled their Paddle Ready app. You can't find that anymore, but the Coast Guard has a wonderful app that is great to download to your smartphone and use. It has a equipment check. It has a float plan that you can file on it. And then other resources are available you can actually go to Roland's Oxpad URL, and there are a lot of resources out there about paddling safety. So that's it. That's my discussion. Sorry it took so long. But at this point, if there's any questions that folks have, please let me know.
Thanks.
Great job, Joey.
Hey,
Joey, Joey, this is Roland. I just want to say, great job. I think you covered a lot of territory there in a very short amount of time.
Thank you, sir. Willie, is there
Joey,
anything
this
else?
is Marie. Do you have, will the slideshow be available for distribution?
Roland, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's available. We've got a lot of that is available online, and Joey or I can send you materials if you can't find it.
It may be useful to the flotilla commanders that are on the call.
I would really like to see vessel examiners get more familiar with this stuff, because I think there's a lot of potential here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Willie, I think that's it, unless there's any other questions.
No, I just want to thank you, Mr. McDevitt, also Keith Economy for providing us with this slide. It's been a blessing. Your presentation was outstanding. It just like promised. I spoke to Fred Allen about you when we were down at D-Train, and he said he highly recommended you. And that's why I jumped right on it when I saw you down there in North Carolina last February. But thanks again. If there's anything that Division 23 can do to assist your division, please let me know.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much. Willie, unless you say anything else, I think that's the end of this online meeting.